On the night of October 10th, 2024, the Earth experienced an unusually strong geomagnetic storm, which resulted in auroral displays that could be seen as far south as Florida and Puerto Rico. We witnessed flickering and flowing flames of this auroral display when we saw it by naked eye from a rural field in southern Ontario, about an hour's north out of the city of Toronto. I'd love to share the experience of the night with you. Let's do it. Just so everyone's on the same page, northern lights are caused when charged particles from the sun flow towards the Earth and then are deformed by the Earth's magnetic field. They enter the Earth's magnetic field and they start firing up atmospheric gases, giving us the brilliant green, pink, and red auroral displays. The storm on October 10th scored a whopping 8 out of 9 on the planetary K index. We have been aware of its coming thanks to alerts from the Space Weather Live website and the app on our phone. The phone had been buzzing pretty much all day, telling us that the storm was hitting KP 6, 7, and 8. Because this was the first time seeing the northern lights for some of us in the family, we decided to go outside of the light dome of the city and headed an hour north to the town of Uxbridge to see it. Even as dusk was falling, we could tell this was going to be a strong display. Right in the city at a Bortle 7 sky with all its light pollution, looking south, I could see a pale red cast throughout the sky. My iPhone is a lot more sensitive than my eye is. This is the way cameras tend to be. And here's a 10-second handheld shot I took, facing south with 50% moon illuminating the sky and light from nearby structures, and you could still see an auroral display. But the thing with the aurora is that its start and stop can be unpredictable. The display could go on for hours, or it could quiet down for hours and then start up again. It's a bit of a gamble. We decided to take the gamble. We got everybody into the car around 8 p.m. and we headed north. Along the way, I kept checking to see if the display was still on. The last thing we needed was to show up at the site and have no display left. But sure enough, my phone was picking up on auroral signal all the way throughout. Here's a shot I took from a moving vehicle. It was close to 10 p.m. as we got to Uxbridge and we stopped by a small country road. At this point, you could see a solid sheet of green and pink that went from the top of the sky all the way down to the bottom. We found another quieter spot in a field. This wonderful display that had started out began to peter out to our dismay. It took about an hour and things were kind of quiet and everyone was getting kind of bored. The kids were getting kind of bored and they decided to head back to the car. I was left to my own devices, carrying my tripods in my hand, trudging back to the car in the darkness of this field. Suddenly I decided to look over my shoulder to see if there was anything. And to my surprise, what do I see? I see a broad green ripple starting to build across the sky. And then meanwhile, here I was standing in this dark field. This ripple started moving and flickering and changing shape and building in intensity. It was a wonderful experience being in the night away from the onslaught of light pollution, experiencing this. Eerily enough, the local coyotes started setting up a howl just around this time. I got some footage of it on my iPhone. Let's take a listen. So all this is going on. The green is flowing and starting to flicker, but it's still very much in these horizontal bands that are close to the horizon. But then I started hearing other things that I started to record in my phone. For example, I started to hear this whooshing sound that would come on and off intermittently. It was in totally the wrong direction for it to be cars, to the best of my recollection. Meanwhile, this ripple is starting to build up into taller rays, and then the rays start turning into streams, and then it starts pulsing. You see these bright pulses of light traveling along the streams, and even so, even as we're watching, the rays start flickering and start changing into what can best be described as, the movement of fire in one of those electric fireplaces, except this was in the northern sky and the flickering was getting higher and higher. So it was a mix of this pulsing, this streaming, this flickering, and all the while the height of this thing kept building up until once again it reached the zenith of the sky. Meanwhile, what we were seeing by eye was still mostly green with a hint of red, but the camera tells a very different story. It shows these greens that were towards the bottom and the red that's occurring towards, higher up in the altitude. At this point, my recording started doing something very strange. It started picking up these crackling sounds. Let's listen to it here. And you can also hear it in this second recording. I don't know what these are. I've asked a number of my astronomer friends. Some of them have reported hearing these crackling sounds when they've witnessed Aurora further north in an isolated spot away from civilization. There's an article in The Guardian that describes scientific study that attempted to record sounds of the aurora, and they reported hearing crackling and whooshing. But apparently this sound is still kind of controversial. So I don't know what this is. It's an unusual thing that my phone picked up. The article in The Guardian attributes it to static discharges caused by the electrical disturbance of the geomagnetic storm. That's about all I know about the physics of this phenomenon. The whooshing sounds were coming from the northeast. To me, they did not sound like a car. They sounded more like a plane going by, but I couldn't see any planes up in the sky. You could say it was the wind, but the leaves were absolutely still. So again, I don't know what this is. In future auroras, I'm looking forward to getting a better field recording mic to see if I can pick these sounds up again. But I'm documenting these here for posterity. At this point, the sky had built up to quite a display. You could see this fireplace-like flickering phenomenon that I was describing. You could start to see reds and greens, and it was all pretty much limited to the northern and the northeastern part of the sky, as far as I can recall. At this point, it was getting late. It was getting close to 1 a.m. It was a Friday morning. We still had work. And so sadly, we had to drive back to the city. But I couldn't stop taking photographs. It was heartbreaking to be leaving behind this amazing phenomenon in the sky, this fireplace in the sky. Here's a photograph I took from the parking lot of the park that we went to see the lights. And you can see how dramatic and large this phenomenon is. And of course, the way home was south, so I had to turn my back on this amazing flowing, flickering phenomenon and head resolutely back to Toronto, making sure to be wakeful and alert while driving home late at night. It was painful knowing that this aurora was still going on strong, but I'm so glad we decided to make that trip away from the city so that we could see this phenomenon naked eye. I mean, you can see lots of images that people have taken from the city, and it's great that folks living in the city could conveniently capture some aspect of this aurora. It is an experience I will never forget. And I certainly aim to have my time-lapsing abilities and my field recording abilities at the next level so that I can capture more of the phenomena that accompany an amazing geomagnetic storm. If you enjoyed this video and you're a nature buff, please like the video, throw in a nice comment, hit that subscribe button. My plan is to make more travel vlogs describing experiences out in nature and under the starry skies. And I hope to see you again. Till then, keep growing and keep exploring.